If you're moving to Washington, D.C. in 2024, buckle up because we're going to go over the top 8 neighborhoods you should consider moving to. My name is Erin. I'm a 25-year-old living in Washington, D.C., and I've lived here for about 3 years now. Since this summer does mark the end of the 3rd year that I've been living in the district, I thought it would be a fun idea to make a video with a list of some of my 8 favorite neighborhoods in the city, and also get some of my friends' opinions on the neighborhoods that they live in. This video is mainly geared toward 20-something and 30-somethings who might be transplants like myself. I moved from California. Maybe you're moving here to start your career or to be closer to friends and family, or to be closer to a partner, maybe even for grad school. So if that applies to you, please stick around because we've got lots to cover. Because I'm making this video for folks who are in a situation similar to where I was when I first moved here, again, 20 or 30 something transplant, no car, etc. For the most part, this video is going to focus on neighborhoods that are 1, metro accessible, or at least accessible by the bus lines in DC. 2, on the livelier side, there are going to be some neighborhoods listed that don't have as much going on, but in general, I'm avoiding super residential neighborhoods because usually you have to have a car to get to those. 3, neighborhoods that are actually in DC. This might be like, okay, yeah, that's what this video is about, but I'm not going to be covering neighborhoods that are in Maryland or Virginia, which are the surrounding states around the district. And 4, neighborhoods that I myself have personally spent a lot of time in and have become a part of my DC experience living here, aka this is just my opinion and not the opinion of all DC residents. You may agree with me or disagree with me, and that's totally fine. Just know that I'm primarily speaking from my own experiences in these neighborhoods. For each neighborhood, I will provide some data that might be important to think about if you're considering moving to DC. So I'm going to include the metro lines or the bus lines that are accessible in that neighborhood. I'm going to talk about the walkability score. I'm going to give a safety rating and also list the average cost of a 1-bedroom apartment in that neighborhood. And for a lot of these neighborhoods, I actually went on a little walking tour last weekend and talked to some of my friends who live in the neighborhoods, filmed some vlog footage. So let's roll that footage now and get started. And I'll also be popping in via voiceover to give you some of the stats as I take you along on this neighborhood tour. All right, it's about 9 a.m. and I am getting ready to go on my little neighborhood extravaganza for the weekend. Our first stop is going to be Cleveland Park. And fun fact, I used to live in this neighborhood. One of the first things that I noticed when I moved to Cleveland Park was how easy it was to be able to have access to the city, but also be in a quieter neighborhood at the same time. East of Connecticut Avenue, you have some apartment buildings and homes, and then to the west of Connecticut Avenue, you have the same, but even more homes, like really big mansions, not mansions, but for DC, these are mansions. I'll show you some clips when we walk around of what I mean, but I have some errands to run there before we go to the rest of our neighborhoods, and I'll film some of my favorite spots from when I was living in the area, and I'll talk about them in the voiceover.
She was my whole October.
So like I mentioned, Cleveland Park lends itself to a lot of different experiences. One of the best things about this neighborhood is access to nature. The bridge that divides Cleveland Park from other neighborhoods on the southern end actually crosses a huge trail that leads into Rock Creek Park, which is like DC's version of Central Park in New York, but much bigger. You can also walk just off Connecticut Avenue, here are some of the larger homes I mentioned, and find your way into Tregaron Conservancy, which is a historic woodland garden preserved by a local organization. And then back on Connecticut Avenue, you've got access to libraries, drugstores, Target, but also other small creative businesses. The average cost of a 1-bedroom apartment in Cleveland Park is $2,149, and WalkScore.com gives the area a 77 out of 100 on walkability. According to crimegrade.org, Cleveland Park is in the 90th percentile for safety, and you can get around via the L2 bus line and the Red Metro line. Our next neighborhood is Petworth. After I ran my errands, I headed over there to meet my friends after their pickup soccer game. Petworth is a quieter neighborhood on the Green Line, but it's pretty close to Georgia Avenue for errands, as well as bars and restaurants on 14th Street. There are some newer apartment buildings, but also lots of group homes with 3 or 4 roommates, which is what my friend Eddie lives in. Crimegrade.org puts Petworth in the 94th percentile for safety, but I'm not sure that that statistic is updated given that there has been an uptick in crime here recently. But WalkScore.com does give it a 98 for walkability, and the average rent for a one-bedroom is $1,926.
I don't think she means to be
We're live. Yeah, or I'll just leave it in for, context. All right, we're here with Eddie. So I wanted to ask you about your experience in Petworth. How long have you lived here?
I've lived here for just under a year now, and I gotta say, I really like it. It's a quaint little neighborhood, I feel like people talk about the heartbeat of the city, and I don't want to, but...
You're saying Petworth is the heartbeat of the city?
No, okay, that's good. There's a lot of nice little neighborhoods, it's very walkable, very close to the metro, a lot of parks, a lot of good dive bars, you got Red Derby.
I was going to say, I was going to talk about Red Derby, yeah.
Like, it feels very neighborhoody. It's not like Noma or...
like Navy Yard?
Yeah, sorry. It's not like
Boy, I'm
Noma.
going to feature Navy Yard in the video.
Oh, no, Navy Yard's great.
If you want to spend a lot of money, Navy Yard is great.
But, like those kind of areas, they feel just like a little more sterile.
It's not as homey.
But
it's like more modern, I feel like.
Oh,
Whereas
yeah, no,
Petworth, it's very like chill, relaxed. I get the sense that there's families that live here, but also people who rent here live in like row houses.
So I live with two housemates. We're in like a 3-bedroom row house on I'm not gonna say the street. I don't want.
Don't do that.
Rapid
Don't do that.
fans. I know how dedicated your fan base is. They'll track me down. I know they will. It's really lovely, and I don't pay a lot for rent. It's very affordable. There's a lot of lovely parks too.
We are at Raymond.
Raymond Rec.
Out of 5 stars, how many stars would you give Petworth?
Solid 4 out of 5. There are like some things, especially like in this area. There's been like a lot of police presence, but I feel like you're in a city.
Right.
It's gonna happen. So solid 4 out of 5 stars.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Eddie.
Next up on the block is Columbia Heights, which is just south of Petworth by one Green Line stop. There are also tons of bus lines that run throughout this neighborhood, which makes it one of the most well-connected neighborhoods in the city. It's in the 57th percentile for safety though, but the average one-bedroom here goes for $1,962. Overall, I would say that the appeal of Columbia Heights is its access to other parts of the district, not only with the metro and bus lines, but also with its walking score of 93.
We are out and about in Columbia Heights. I'm with my friend Katie, and this is Katie's Hot Take. She's gonna talk shit about the neighborhoods we're featuring, and I'm gonna slice it up and include it in different parts of the video so you guys can get the pros and the cons of all the neighborhoods we're talking about.
I might say pros too if I really like the
yeah,
pros, but
for sure.
I also might shit on your favorite neighborhood. Sorry.
Yeah. So let's start with Columbia Heights. Let's do some pros and cons.
Okay. I like Columbia Heights. Got a great Target. Huge pro. The best little libraries. That's my main.
Free libraries?
Yes.
Okay.
The little free libraries are amazing in Columbia Heights.
Katie loves good green space.
I love me a good park.
Yeah.
I love picnics. I love hanging with friends outside. Cons?
As you can hear, probably it's very trafficy. Yeah. There's a lot of bus lines that run through here, which is good for
it's got
around,
a lot of it's got good shopping, food, places to live, but places to hang out.
I will say that a lot of people who live here that I've been friends with, they live in a lot of row houses, which is very common. I have been to some sick house parties.
I haven't been invited to a sick party.
Well, we'll have to fix that. Okay, let's move on to, you also wanted to talk about Adams Morgan.
After grabbing lunch, I said goodbye to my pals and continued my neighborhood extravaganza solo for the rest of the day. And I started by walking to Adams Morgan. Now, this is one of my favorite neighborhoods, especially for going out in, but before we get into the stats, I'll let Katie take it away with some pros and cons.
I hate Adams Morgan because I can't get there. So it's a great place if you live there. If you don't live there, you'll never see it because it's in a metro or public transit dead zone, and it is very difficult to get to. If you live there, be prepared for your friends who live in other neighborhoods to never visit you.
Yeah. Unless you're going out.
Yes, unless you're someone who likes to go out,
yes.
Which I personally don't go out all that often. So it's the pros of being there it's a great place to be if you are already there, but getting there is very hard. So.
Yeah. But
I'm
like
not
lots
there
of bars, restaurants on 18th Street. There's like a lot of art murals, which is very nice.
I'm hating on it because I'm not there and I want to be there. But it's hard to get there.
That's very self-aware, very demure.
So like Katie mentioned, Adams Morgan is indeed in a Metro line dead zone. The closest stops are 15 to 20 minute walks away, but there are quite a few bus lines that run through here. If you live on those bus lines, you'll have a much easier time getting here. Living here provides great access to bars, jazz clubs, restaurants, and local businesses on 18th Street. The average rent for a one-bedroom is on the steeper side at $2,616, just because there is so much to do here. CrimeGrade.org puts Adams Morgan in the 64th percentile for safety, and WalkScore.com gives this neighborhood a 97 on walkability.
The next neighborhood that I want to go to is DuPont Circle. You could totally walk from Adams Morgan to DuPont, but it is really hot today, so I'm going to take the bus. DuPont Circle is about a 20-minute walk south of Adams Morgan, and I would describe this neighborhood as one of the most vibrant in the city. DuPont Circle itself is a roundabout park that is a frequent spot for picnics, chess games, and tourists to come take pictures by the fountain in the center. But the neighborhood is not just a tourist trap, it is also home to dozens of local embassies, hundreds of row houses, and some newer apartment complexes as well. The average rent here for a one-bedroom is not cheap at $2,911, but the trade-off is the central downtown location via the Red Line and multiple bus lines, the walkability, which WalkScore.com gives a 98, and unbeatable access to the city's culture. Because it is closer to downtown, CrimeGrade.org does put DuPont Circle in the 20th percentile, but personally, I don't agree with that rating. I have felt just as safe in DuPont Circle as I have in some of the safest neighborhoods on this list. The last neighborhood I visited on this day was Shaw, which is definitely one of the liveliest areas on this list. I'm often in this neighborhood to go to restaurants or to go dancing. Howard University is also very close and shares a metro stop with the neighborhood, and Logan Circle is also close by. Because of all these landmarks, Shaw can give you whatever vibe you're looking for, whether you're a tourist or a local. But for residents here, average rent for a one-bedroom is $2,660. It's in the 54th percentile for safety and has a 95 out of 100 walk score. My last stop of the day in Shaw was actually a team announcement party for my fall volleyball league. It was held at Kiki, which is a local gay club, and they opened early just for our league to have our event here. So here are a couple of clips from the party. So there are a couple of neighborhoods on my 8 neighborhoods list that I didn't get a chance to go to last weekend when I was doing my little neighborhood tour. So I figured I would talk about those 2 neighborhoods now. The first one that I'm gonna cover is Navy Yard, which I think is a very, very hot take for transplants living in DC. If you had told me 3 years ago that I wouldn't mind the Navy Yard neighborhood, I don't think I would have believed you. Like, it has such a bad reputation, especially from transplants in the city. One, there's this idea that there's not much to do there except to go to baseball or soccer games. And 2, the neighborhood also has a reputation, especially when the presidential administration is Republican. Like all of the conservative congressional staffers, populate Navy Yard specifically with renting apartments there. And I'm not gonna sugarcoat that. Even though this is the nation's capital, DC is a very liberal city, and politics are obviously a huge part of the culture in this city. So that's just something to consider if you're moving to Navy Yard. And I will say that all of those stereotypes, I think, are true for the western half of the Navy Yard neighborhood, but the eastern half is popping off. It is very bougie and very, very expensive. But you've got access to the metro via the Green Line. The Navy Yard neighborhood has its own Green Line stop. And I think the biggest selling points for the eastern side of the Navy Yard neighborhood are the restaurants. Oh my God, some of the best restaurants I've ever been to. Also, they've got a really great winery called District Winery. I've been there a couple times. Another plus is that you are actually right on the Anacostia River. So biking, walking on trails is super big in this neighborhood, and having access to the waterfront, again, if you can afford it. This is by far one of the most expensive neighborhoods in this city. Because there are so many caveats to this neighborhood, I'm going to include our last section of Katie's hot takes here so you can also get her perspective.
Navy Yard is very expensive. It doesn't have the things I enjoy about DC.
Yeah. What do you enjoy about DC? Actually, let's
I
talk
love
about that.
how much green space there is in DC. I love all the parks. I love the walkability, the public transit. It's super easy to get to other parts of DC and other cities on the East Coast. And there's so much fun, free stuff happening all the time. Like, I was just at the National Book Festival, National Book Convention. Also all the museums, there's a ton of concerts. Like, the nightlife is great, which I don't personally frequent, but
I force you to come out every once in a while.
yeah, it's fun when I go, but I don't go.
Yeah,
often.
yeah.
As far as city demographics go, it's really easy to find people who are like you because there's so many people.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add?
I love DC.
Yay. Everybody say thank you, Katie.
Thank you, Katie.
All right, and then our final neighborhood of the video is going to be Capitol Hill, which might seem obvious. There are tons of people who live in Capitol Hill because of its proximity to the Capitol building. A lot of people who work there will live in this neighborhood. Any time that I'm in that area in general, I will find any excuse to take the side streets and just walk by the beautiful row homes that are there. I think a lot of people, rather than living in a one-bedroom apartment, which I'll still include the price of that here, a lot of people, especially in their 20s and 30s, are living in row homes with a lot of other people. So that's definitely one way to save on rent. Capitol Hill, compared to some of the other neighborhoods on this list, is quite big. Not only can you technically get off at the Union Station Metro, but you can also get off at, I believe, Capitol South and Eastern Market. Some people consider Eastern Market its own neighborhood. Some people loop it into Capitol Hill. Even if you don't live close to the Eastern Market Metro stop and you are living in Capitol Hill, walking to Eastern Market on the weekends for like the farmers market and the flea market is still like a very common activity and is very close by. That's one of the things I love about the neighborhood. And it is a little bit more affordable than some of the neighborhoods that we've listed previously. I will say that in general, the idea of affordability is very, very subjective, especially in DC with the way that inflation has gone and the way that inflation has specifically impacted the rental market recently. A lot of people are living with roommates, and I would highly recommend looking up some statistics about that and like the average price that people pay. But yeah, I just wanted to say that I know that affordable, like the neighborhoods I'm claiming are affordable, for most cities in the United States, it's really not that affordable. Another caveat that I will make is DC is actually currently revamping its entire bus network. So some of the bus lines that I have listed in this video are going to be renamed in the future. I'm gonna link a resource down below that tells you the old bus lines and which new bus lines they're gonna correspond to, just so you have all of the updated stuff if you're watching this video after 2024. You'll still have an idea of what bus lines are accessible to you in the neighborhoods that I've listed. All right, and with that, we are all done with the video. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you found it helpful. If you're interested in more DC content, feel free to subscribe. I usually make vlogs about my 20-something life in the city. And with that, I will see you next time. Bye.